Adam Tank. I'm the co-founder of a VC-backed startup in the water industry, but maybe more importantly, I'm now a published author. I'm a foster father and a bio dad, and generally just a geek. I love learning about the world. I'm a passionately curious guy, so I'm excited to see where the conversation takes us.
Let's get into it. So we talk a lot about human optimization. That's a common thread on the show, but I want to know your secret to the good life, to a long life, as Seneca calls it. What is your secret to a long life?
Maybe this is too stoic. I'll be curious to get your take on it. But effectively, we have to enjoy the present moment because that's all we have. So I have read a lot of Ryan Holiday stuff over the years, and of course his like ultimate source material, which is a bunch of the philosophers that have come up with some of the more stoic type mindsets, and have also, let's see, early 20s, got into the power of now and a bunch of other mindfulness related content. And so sort of two things came together for me. One was there's very little we can control. And a lot of what we worry about and freak out about and that causes us a lot of strife in our day-to-day is stuff that's outside of our control. So we just got to quit worrying about it. Number one. And it's all we have is the present. So even if we're worrying about something that's going to happen, it's going to happen in the future. The future is never guaranteed. And the past is in the past. So really, is there that much we have to worry about? Not much. And then the second one is this idea of memento mori, or we could die any day, basically. I could walk out the door. I could trip down the stairs today and that's it, done for. So I have to appreciate what I have right now in the moment at the time. And as long as I can keep that top of mind, I've led a very fulfilling life for myself. I always tell my wife it's kind of morbid, but if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'll be stoked with my life. Of course, there are things I want to accomplish. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of goals I have, but by and large, I'm super thrilled with everything that's happened to date so far.
There's a Stoic quote in Latin, right? Memento mori, remember that you will die. And I think there's I talked about this with one of the clinicians that we had on the show, but there is this deeper Stoic practice where you even imagine that other people that you love are gone, right? You imagine that your kid's not there anymore. And then all in that instant, you go, oh my gosh, let me lock in. Here is my kid right here. Like, I can't imagine a world without him. In reality, I have to just be here, right here for him, because it's not always going to be this way. And so I think there's, it's this two-edged sword in that practice, because it will make you feel very depressed. If you sit there and you think about someone not being in your life, man, it kicks you in the teeth. And in the times that I've done that, right, I started doing that when I started studying Nietzsche. And unfortunately, I went down the rabbit hole with Camus as well. And so anyone who's read like The Stranger or anything, like Camus is just a total, it follows this vein of absurdism, of course, right? Where life is just nothing. It's useless. Entropy will reign, and you're not any important than stones in the river. But I think that practice in my own life has caused simultaneously great grief. I think, yeah, I am gonna die. And how would I feel about my life right now if I were to pass? And I have so there, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. I have so much that I want to accomplish. There's such big, lofty, juicy, delicious, unreasonable goals. And to be able to say, like, I'm good. I would probably in this moment, if I was given a day to live and they were like, yeah, cancer is going to take you tomorrow, I could probably find peace. But how do you balance those two things between having all these lofty goals and having this life and the lives of your children and your foster children that you want to enjoy, and this pursuit of the present moment and happiness with what you've accomplished so far? How do you balance those two things?
I know that the future is never guaranteed. So I love having the goals. I love striving for them, and I love accomplishing things. But I also know that those things may never happen. So if we're constantly chasing that next thing, whether, early in your life, it's I want the girlfriend, or I want the wife, or I want the car, or I want the job, or I want the 6-figure salary, or I want this, or I want that. You have very little control over those things in many cases. Yeah, you can work hard as hell to achieve them, and you might, but it's never a guarantee. So for me, it's always, I have these things I want to accomplish. If they happen in the moment, I'll be thrilled. But again, all I have right now is the present. It's all I have is in this very moment. So I have to be fulfilled and happy, which are different things in my opinion. We can get into that, but I have to be comfortable with the current moment, because the future is never guaranteed. It's really
Hmm.
that simple.
Were you raised with that mindset? Did that come from your parents, or did you develop that? Did you pick that up along the way?
I think it was developed on my own.
Because I have a bunch of worry warts in my family. I love you, mom. I love you, dad. But man, I'm not going to blame them because it's not their fault. But dude, I am
Yeah.
a worrier. Rafiki from the Lion Kings, right? It's in the past, but man, sometimes it's hard to let those things go. And so you feel like you had this your whole life, or did it take losing some things and parting with those things to really let that lesson set in for yourself?
Man, that's a great question. It's not something I thought much about until this moment. What I would venture to guess is I had a very controlling father as I was growing up. And I always sort of felt like I was pushing against that controlling aspect of him and that on my life. And so I think not having control of my own life, when I got into college and was able to sort of live my own life, if you will, out from under his thumb, and I was able to read the types of books I wanted to read and have the conversations I wanted to have, I probably the pendulum swung too far in terms of I'm the only one in control of my own life and in control of my own destiny. And I don't trust anyone else to help me out, because ultimately if it is to be, it's up to me. And so I think that when I developed that sort of mindset, that also probably collided with books like The Power of Now or some of the Stoicism type stuff I was reading. That's, I think, where it formed and it really developed. Because I don't recall that being a theme throughout my childhood. It happened more in my like late teens, early 20s.
Eckhart Tolle talks about his experience when he was 17. He was sitting there and he all of a sudden realized that he was thinking, but that was a different version
Correct.
of him that was thinking of him thinking.
Exactly. Yep.
Did you have any moment like that where you kind of became aware, you hit that first little stepping stone to enlightenment when you were young or even recently, or have you been able to find that specific type of I don't know, call it like
It's
brain
like,
chemistry awareness
yeah.
of who you are and the fact that it's separate from who you actually are?
Dude, the first time I heard it was when I read Eckhart stuff. And I had never thought about it before then. The only time I've experienced this for myself, and I don't think it's the same thing, but you can let me know what you think about this, is when I'm on a stage speaking to people, I sort of have an out-of-body experience where my body is communicating to the audience and I'm somewhere else thinking ahead or paying attention to audience members or whatever else, just think about other things, and my body is doing its own thing, still talking in the moment, but I'm not in control of that talking. It's just happening. That's the closest thing I've experienced.
It's the flow state. So, right, like what is that? How are you having an out of body experience? How is your body being piloted by your automatic responses? Because typically in those moments, because I've had them myself, right? You're dialed in. You're locked, like you're doing everything perfect. You're hitting the script. What is that from your perspective? What's happening in your brain and in your body to be able to generate that experience?
That one is above my pay grade, man.
And
My pay grade.
how Jesus or something needs to come down and flip the
I mean,
script.
I've read like, I probably need to reread it. Two books actually I need to reread. So one is Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. I'm sure there's something in there about this, but I'd have to reread. The second one is Cal Newport, Deep Work. I have it on my bookshelf. Yeah, Deep Work. It's this yellow book right up there. He talks about that too, getting into a flow state. But I don't, as far as I remember, he doesn't define it the way that you and I are talking about right now. So
Well, from psychocybernetics, right? What I understand, which that book needs to be updated with all the latest neuroscience, because I think that there'd be a wonderful collision of thought.
when was the lit? So I have the new Psychocybernetics on my, it's literally titled The New, but I think the new was probably written in like the 80s or early 90s or something.
Like that.
Yeah.
So in that book, right, and in the work by the guy that did the Silva meditation method, right? That's the meditation method for myself that I use every single day, and anytime that I'm going to do something difficult, I do the 3-2-1 method, which is a cross between transcendental meditation and hypnosis. You literally rehearse this. You imagine the letter or the number 3 in your mind. Imagine the letter 3 in your mind 3 times, whether it's like a number on an address or literally a big number in a field. You imagine it 3, 3, 3, and then 2, 2, 2, and then 1, 1, 1. And there's a lengthy meditation that where you you coincide those things with relaxation, right? Number one is three is the relaxation of your body. Two is the relaxation of your mind, pushing out thoughts and then going somewhere. They always talk about like you got to go to a happy place or just like a nice calm place. And then one is kind of letting go, where you're not in your mind anymore. You've just you're like noises don't bother you anymore. You're really in the meditation. You've hit that moment. So in all of those works, the only thing that I can surmise from what these meditation teachers are trying to get us to do is reduce cortisol, number one. Right? When you're able to reduce the production of cortisol in your body and get the other juicy stuff, right? Like serotonin and dopamine, and you're able to juice your brain. I think that when you're having that out of body experience, your pineal gland is producing dimethyltryptamine, but I don't have any evidence. I don't have any literature to support that. I just think that that's the case because of the meditation folks who are out there that say that they can produce DMT in their brain naturally by doing like Wim Hof breathing. And so what I think is probably happening is you are juicing a powerful combination of neurochemicals to enhance the production of the little dendrites in your corpus callosum that are making your right and left hemisphere communicate much quicker than they normally do, which allows your prefrontal cortex to then produce the high functioning brain activity that's needed to enter that flow state. That's from the literature and from all the ridiculous nerdy reading that I do. That's as much as I can surmise without having everybody hooked up to an MRI, EKG to validate it. But it's a total guess, you know?
Is the pineal gland the one responsible for dreaming and like lucid dreaming?
I thought it was, hippocampus, amygdala combo. You gotta ask.
I have to look it up. So I recently started taking a turmeric and black pepper supplement. I have never had more wild dreams in my life.
I have it's this African nut. I actually have it right here. So this coconut nut thing next to the edibles. It's African bitter cola, Garcinia cola. So you break this open and you add it to tobacco or weed and you smoke it and you hallucinate when you sleep. You're really like, you go super deep. You can't get woken up. It's this magic African nut that you can take to have these really powerful dreams. So this is one of those things that like, here it is over here, this obscure, plant in Africa. And then here's science way over here. And those need to collide at some point. And it's nerds like us.
Yeah. I've always been fascinated by applications of science in these types of topics. So I studied microbiology in college because I'm fascinated by the stuff that we can't see. And bacteria to me are always been fascinating. I remember one of my first toys I loved getting was a microscope as a kid, looking at cross sections of leaves and studying all this stuff that was invisible to the naked eye. And I've always felt like nature has produced just an incredible amount of knowledge that we have to find a way to tap into. Because as you look at, what I think the easiest way to visualize this is when you see things like I saw this recently, actually, all roads lead to Rome. So there's this visualization of all these roads that look just like the alveoli in our lungs and how they all sort of come to this central location and how it branches out just like a lot of other things in nature do, branching like that, probably dendrites too, if we were to get down on that level. And I just feel like everything that happens in our collective society on a macro scale is happening on a micro scale, but we just don't see it. It's just not readily apparent to us. And actually the book that you now have, that's sort of me pulling from microbiology, molecular physics, or metaphysics, and like some other different areas of science, and pulling that into like social science and psychology and motivation, all that stuff.
I think what's really cool is as you zoom out or you zoom in, the patterns appear to be the same. And it's mystifying, but it's also terrifying at the same time, right? You get this sense of Horton Hears a Who, where it's like, oh, what's inside of the really tiny thing that we're taking a look at that happens to also look like the galaxy clusters that are in the James, it's like, oh, are we inside of just a little, neuron firing? And those ideas, boy, they terrified me when I was deep into nihilism. As soon as I had left the Mormon church, man, I was like, oh my gosh, is our whole universe just a neuron firing in a pig's brain in some other universe. Like
Right.
how unexciting. Damn it. And after the ayahuasca trip, man, I was in a weird place like that for a long time. But I came to the conclusion that who cares whether so the main thought was like, okay, maybe I'm still in the ayahuasca trip. That was the thought that I had for a long time.
Oh, wow.
Years to shake it. Yeah.
Wow.
That my body had just like created reality for me, like woke up. But one of the first thoughts was like, not convinced I could still be in there. I lived this feeling, all this stuff. And the conclusion that I finally came to that helped snap me out of all of that was like, great, I get to do it again. I get to experience all these things all over again. I get to map out my life the way that I want. And if this is a illusion created by my brain, I'll get to wake up from that ayahuasca trip and I'll have a roadmap of what not to do and what to do. And I'll have all kinds of cool experiences that I can go chase and I get to go again. And so that helped me snap out of it in a big way. But man, it was a rough place.
Woof. Wow, I can't even imagine.
So I want to know so much more, right? Obviously there's a lot of directions that we can dive, but I promise all my viewers that we keep our shows real short, right? So we always
I love it.
chop it up into little pieces. So what is your grand vision right now for your life, assuming that you don't get hit by a bus tomorrow and
Right.
you get to fulfill all of your big, hairy, audacious goals? Like what is the biggest, hairiest one that's in your crosshairs right now?
So the biggest one is the VC-backed company I alluded to in my intro. So we are, our mission is to bring clean water, clean energy, reliable transportation, all critical infrastructure to the masses globally. So my goal would be that our software is used in every critical infrastructure project in the world to build a more innovative, resilient society in the face of whatever comes in the future, whether it be a changing climate, whether it be geopolitical war, whether it be population collapse or population growth, whatever that is, our infrastructure is not set up to do that. So we have to do a better job thinking about how we plan and design it in the first place. And that's where our company comes in. So my BHAG is every single thing that you see in the built world that you rely on from a day-to-day perspective is at a conceptual level designed using our software. That would be the dream.
And the first step, I mean, well, I guess the better question would, where can all of the people who are running these infrastructures, where can they find you?
Yeah, adamtank.com. Send me a note. Check me out on LinkedIn. Either way is fine. But if you are someone who is responsible for designing, constructing, capitalizing any of this infrastructure, telecommunications, healthcare, residential, water, power, any of it, please reach out.
Adam Tank, thank you for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you, Eric.
This has been the PulseOx podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.